Hey guys, number one Marmaduke fan here. I'm still slowly working my way through the 144-page mega spectacular Batman Detective Comics number 1027. This custom cover was done by Marshall Parrish, so here's his info. Go check him out. There's so many stories I've been kind of like just doing them four at a time. So these are short little stories, but some of them have some like really neat artistic talent in them, and I also want to do some quick comments on the stories themselves. So first one I'm looking at today is Ghost Story, written by James Tynion IV, and I've read a couple things by him. Nothing by him is really like stuck in my head yet, and the artist is Riley Rosmo. I think I've just seen some of his art floating around Twitter or something, but I've never read a comic by him, and I'm really impressed by Riley Rosmo's art in this little short story. It's what I call a really good use of abstract exaggeration. So, you know, like his Robin, let's point it at there. So he'll like exaggerate the length of the limbs to make Robin look like a little bit more like a circus performer and emphasize, you know, the circus acrobatics they do, and he'll kind of like emphasize little cartoony expressions to show Robin change when Dead Man possesses him. I even kind of like this convention of Dead Man becoming a panel and encapsulating Robin as he possesses him. The other thing that Riley does that I really like is he'll do some like, you know, jankety, you know, rotating panel stuff, but he'll kind of remember to bring some structure back into it. So when he has these panels, you know, jumbling down, they move in a nice arc. Later, there's a really neat two-page spread where you'll have traditional square panels for the close-ups on the faces, and then he'll do like the glowing energy shapes to create panels for the fight scene, and he keeps a pattern. So it's face, fight scene, face, fight scene, face, fight scene. So even though he's doing like this really cool, exaggerated, expressive stuff, he's remembering to bring some order into it, so it's not all chaos. So I really enjoyed this is like one of the best examples I've seen of doing something completely unique and exaggerated and abstract, but not going too far over the boat with it. The story's a very basic, you know, Batman, Deadman team up. There's kind of like a nice theme to it where Batman isn't afraid of ghosts because he had a conversation with his mom when he was a little kid, and he's carried that with him as an adult. So yeah, it's a very straightforward little Batman adventure story. This cover is by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez and Trish Mulvihill. I think Garcia Lopez might be like an old school like champ from the old Batman days based on the style. The story 4 is written by Kelly Sue DeConnick, and John Romita Jr. did the pencils, and Klaus Janson did the inks. The story's okay. It's kind of like a neat little double thing where Bruce is reminiscing about a Batman adventure he had on one hand, and on the other hand, he's playing golf with this jerky guy who's trying to intimidate him. And it's clear that the Batman adventure has helped him kind of like put two and two together on the shady business dealings, right? So Batman's work as Batman helps him be cool, even as Bruce Wayne. John Romita Jr. So my thought on John Romita Jr. is when John Romita Jr. cares, he's a really good artist with a very, what he's kind of famous for is for making his sort of sketchy breakdown art his final art. So it always preserves that kind of like loosey-goosey look to it. But sometimes that means that he's just phoning it in. He doesn't care if something looks bad. But I think when he's paired up with a good inker, Klaus Janson, I think that Klaus Janson kind of picked up on John Romita Jr.'s style. So, you know, some really simple hatching, really strong shapes is what the inker is picking up on. There are a couple faces where I thought it looked a little ugly or a little too off kilter, but it definitely looks like this is John Romita Jr. actually trying to do some cool Batman art. Here's a face I didn't like that one, but it's what John Romita Jr. is famous for, and this isn't as lazy as some of his other work, and he's still a legend. If he's a little lazy in his old age on some books, I still respect basically what he's accomplished throughout his career. Art by Jamal Campbell. I really like the solid construction on these bodies, but Batman is doing a fabulous dance. He's about to tip and fall right over on his face. So that's not going to look so cool. The Odyssey, let me get the writer and artist. The Odyssey was written by Marv Wolfman. Emanuela Lupacino did the pencils, and Bill Sinkiewicz, he did the inks, and I do that on purpose because Bill Sinkiewicz, he's a bit of a jerk on Twitter. So if you're a jerk on Twitter, I pronounce your name the funny way. All right, so Emanuela Lupacino, I really like it. This is sort of maybe just more like a classic, really good illustration style for the comics. It takes us back to 1937, and Bruce Wayne's grandfather, Patrick Wayne, is sort of like a flamboyant inventor, and there's a mystery involving a ship sinking. Now, the mystery gets solved pretty easily. Like, there isn't like a giant twisteroo to the mystery. Basically, they're trying to get the priceless art off the building. Bruce stays back and he figures out that something is going on, and so Batman miraculously appears out in the ocean to save the day. So it's an extremely straightforward little, treasure hunt adventure, but with a little setup at the end that the treasure has already been stolen, but they're going to go after it. So that's kind of neat. I sort of like the this little story doesn't do like anything really brilliant or out of the ordinary, but I kind of like the classic, simple little let's go find the treasure adventure story. And it's really professional and clean art. Very Batman worthy. The last one I'm going to look at is Detective number 26, written by Grant Morrison, and the artist is Chris Burnham. And the story on Detective number 26 is this real example of Grant Morrison. He's a famous comics writer doing his sort of tongue-in-cheek, aren't I so clever take on old school detective comics, where what if there was a goofy poor kid who wanted to be a dime a dozen masked adventurer. And isn't it silly how they all have a color in their name, like silver? And isn't it silly how they all have hard-boiled monologues about darkness and crime in the city? And I feel like I've seen this joke done a dozen times. The Silver Ghost actually kind of looks kind of cool, right? Like, hey, Grant, what if you actually tried really hard to make a cool new superhero, right? Or something like that. But I also I couldn't find like the original Detective Comics number 26 online, but I know that Slam Bradley is in it. And Slam Bradley makes a little like guest appearance or cameo appearance in this. So I'm guessing that Grant is also kind of commenting on that era of Detective Comics. So I'm annoyed at Grant Morrison for doing the same old weren't comics in the golden age so silly guys gag. I guess he's also kind of making fun of Rorschach because the character has like the freckles like Rorschach has. But leaving that aside, Chris Burnham's art, I really dig it. I like that he's bringing kind of like a goofy underground vibe to it. Everything feels like really dense, dark, and moody, which is great for a hard-boiled detective story, even if it's Grant Morrison making fun of the hard-boiled detective. And the joke is basically Batman shows up right at the end and cleans clocks, and this poor schmuck realizes that he's never going to live up to that and instantly gives up. Like, he doesn't even talk to Batman, or he doesn't even give Batman like a cool moment to like tell him, hey kid, I don't think you're cut out for this, or anything like that. So, come on, Grant Morrison. You're not so smart that you can just say, oh, aren't old comic books dumb and call it a day, dude? Or I guess, isn't my buddy Alan Moore, isn't he such a goofball for creating Rorschach? Come on, give me something to chew on. But Chris Burnham gets real good props for this kind of funky, dark and edgy art that's added to it. That's 4 stories, so I think that's good. And here's Marshall Parrish's info if you want to go check them out. I think there are only 4 stories left, so my next review will wrap up this issue. With that, I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. Catch you later.